Hey, my friends, it is Leah with your Wednesday connection. It is Winsday. I hope you're having a wonderfully winning day and a fabulously winning week. Today, we are going to talk about dreams. Have you ever had a dream? Has anyone ever said to you, dream big? Dream big. I had someone write in a book many years ago. In fact, it's been so long, I honestly don't remember how long it's been, but it's been close to 30 years ago. They signed their book and they said, dream big because God dreams big dreams for you. And that has impacted my life greatly because I didn't really at that time have a dream for my life, but I had a vision of what my life was supposed to be like, the things that God had called me to do. So that said, I want us to look at a Bible story that probably many of us are familiar with, but it's the story of Joseph and the dream that he had, or the dreams that he had, I should say. You can read the story of Joseph throughout the last portion of the book of Genesis. So we're just going to look at Genesis chapter 37 today. And at this time, Joseph was a 17-year-old young man. And he had one brother that was younger than himself, and that was Benjamin. And all of his other brothers were older. And all of his other brothers had a different mother than he and Benjamin. So here's what happened. Jacob settled again, the Bible tells us, in the land of Canaan where his father had lived. So there's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Isaac was his father and who had settled in the land of Canaan. So Jacob had resettled there. And it says this is the history of Jacob's family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he often tended his father's flocks with his half-brothers, the sons of his father's wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. But Joseph reported to his father some of the bad things his brothers were doing. So Joseph was the younger brother, and he saw his older brothers doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing. And so he would go back and say, Father, my brothers are doing this. And some people look at this as like he was being a tattletale kind of person, but I don't necessarily think it was that. I think it could be that, but it could also just be that he was a conscientious young man, and he saw his brothers doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. So he talked to his father about it and said, hey, my brothers are doing this. What are you going to do, or what do you want me to do about it? So let's go on. So this happened, and then Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day he gave Joseph a special gift, a beautiful robe. So, of course, we know that Dolly Parton wrote a song about the coat of many colors, and so it was a play off of this particular incident because he was loved and all of that. So he had this beautiful robe of many colors. So his brothers, though, hated him. His brothers hated him. They were like, oh, he's such a brat. He's the favorite prince. He's the baby. He's the, all the things that we think, because we're humans and we get frustrated and jealous of people who have more than what we think we should have, and that kind of thing. So his brothers hated him because of their father's partiality. They couldn't say a kind word to him, so they just hated everything he said, everything he did, and they talked about it. They couldn't say anything nice about him because they couldn't stand him. So it says, one night Joseph had a dream and promptly reported the details to his brothers, causing them to hate him even more. Listen to this dream, he announced. We were out in the field tying up bundles of grain. My bundle stood up, and then your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before it. So you're going to be our king, are you? His brothers taunted. And they hated him all the more for his dream and what he had said. Now, think about this. This kid, this 17-year-old, goes to sleep and he has a dream, and he's like, can you believe this dream? How weird is this? And a lot of people think that he was bragging about it. And again, I think there's a possibility that could be, but it doesn't really say that that's what he was doing. I think it was just one of those things where he's like, I had the weirdest dream. Listen to this. And so he tells them, and so they're like, oh, you've got to be kidding. So we're supposed to bow down to you now? That kind of thing. So this time, it says that Joseph had another dream and told his brothers about it. Listen to this dream, he said. The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me. Okay, so 11 stars. So that's his brothers. That represents the 11 brothers, okay? So again, his brothers are going, you have got to be kidding. Do you think that we're going to accept this about you? So this time he told his father as well as his brothers, and his father rebuked him. He said, Joseph, you don't need to be sharing this stuff. Don't be talking about this. But listen to what happened after that. He rebuked him. And he said, what do you mean? His father asked. Will your mother, your brothers, and I actually bow before you? But while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father gave it some thought and wondered what it all meant. So his father was going, you know what? I think that God is trying to speak to us through this dream. And so soon after this, his brothers went to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. When they had been gone for some time, Jacob said to Joseph, your brothers are over at Shechem with the flocks. I'm going to send you to them. I'm ready to go, Joseph replied. So he goes over there, and what happened was that his brothers eventually plotted to kill him, and then they found this pit. It was a well, but it was dry at the time, and so they said, hey, instead of killing him, let's just throw him in the well. That way we're not guilty of murder, and we can just walk away from him, but we'll be rid of him. We don't have to worry about him anymore. So they made this big elaborate plan of how they were going to do this. But while they were getting ready to carry it out, there were some Ishmaelites that came through. So remember, Ishmael was the half-brother of Isaac. And so he had all these generations after him as well. And so these Ishmaelites had come through. And so instead of throwing him in the pit, they just sold him into slavery. The brothers just sold him to the Ishmaelites. So Joseph, of course, he eventually ends up in Egypt and all of this. But my point here today is about the dream itself. Because sometimes we have dreams. And sometimes there are dreams that we can share with other people, but sometimes there are dreams that we cannot share with other people. Now, what happened with Joseph, and the reason that I think that he probably wasn't so braggadocious as he was just immature and going, this is the weirdest dream. Can you believe I had this dream? But let me just say this. I can tell you that many years ago, it's probably been, I don't know, a good 35 years ago or more now, that I shared a dream that the Lord had placed in my life. And there were people who celebrated with me about it, about something that God had called me to do. But there were also other people who it made them angry. It made these people angry that I had this, that I knew what God had called me to do. And so they became like Joseph's brothers. They became jealous of the call. It wasn't me. It was what God had called me to do, because they saw themselves in a certain place and they saw me as their competition or something like that. And so when people begin to see that, that's what happened with Joseph's brothers. So they begin to plot against other people. So we have to be very careful. And even though when I shared what I believed the Lord was calling me to do, I shared it in what I thought was a very small environment. So I wasn't like out telling everyone what I thought. I was asking them to pray with me. But there were certain ones in that environment that instead of praying with me about it, they chose to be angry about it. So, you have to be very careful and discerning. But of course, like Joseph, I was very young when this happened. And so we have to be discerning about the people with whom we share such dreams, because we want people to dream with us. And if it's something that we believe that the Lord is calling us into, we want people to pray with us about it so that we can have clarity. Lord, is this really what you're calling me to do? Is this the clear picture of what you're calling me to do? And those kinds of things. But here's the rest of the story. When we have a dream, that we believe that God is directing us to carry out, then we have to act on the dream. So we have to dream really big. We have to think about God, this dream. And as a matter of fact, the thing that God had called me to do, I was going, there is no way. I can't do this. And God says, I know. And I'm going to do it, but I'm going to use you to do this. And I was going, I don't think so. But you know what? God can do the impossible. With people, with people things seem impossible, but God makes the impossible possible because he puts super on the natural. So that's what we're calling him to do when we do this. So we got to dream big and say, God, this dream is bigger than I can possibly do. So I'm going to lean into you to carry it out. So that's what we need to do. But look here, when we dream big, we also have to think way ahead, right? So we're dreaming big about this thing and we're thinking way out there. Now, I've shared this before, but I'm more visionary. And I'm not, I do the details and I think about the details and I know the details are important, but I don't see the details first. I see the big picture first. I'm very global when it comes to thinking about outside there and thinking going out and doing a thing in the future, that's visionary kind of thing. So I'm out here thinking about this gigantic picture, and then I get the big picture and then I start bringing in the details that go with it. Now, I'm married to someone that I will bring him the big picture and then he goes, well, what about this little tiny pinpoint right here? Because he is the opposite. He sees the inside going to the outside. So he sees all the little details, all the little thingies that are going to the outside thing. And that's one of the reasons that we make a good team, because I see, it's wonderful. And Mike goes, blah, 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 all these little tiny things that we have to address. And he sees those first. So he says, in order to get here, we got to do all these things. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to be out here and we're going to look at all the little things as we come in. And so it works. But all that to say that when you dream something big, you have to think way out there, but you also have to think about all the things that lead you. So you've got to think about the steps that are going to get you to the big picture, right? So you dream really big and you think way out there, maybe like in football, go long, think way out there. And so while you're doing this, you're also going to pray hard. Dream big, think out there, think long, and pray hard. Pray diligently, pray fervently. Ask the Lord, lead me in this dream. Take me where you want me to go. I want to do the right thing. And then you've got to take courage. You've got to take courage. You can't just dream about it and pray about it. You got to act on what you dream, because inaction is an action. Okay? So if you don't do anything, you're never going to realize your dream. So action is going to take you where you're going. Inaction is going to take you nowhere. And so when you think about dreams require choices, right? So God-given dreams bring results. And depending on the people with whom you share these dreams, you're going to get results from those people. Sometimes you're going to get ridicule, just like Joseph did. Sometimes you're going to get people that just ask you a lot of questions about it. Sometimes you're going to get jealousy, like Joseph did. People are going to be jealous of the fact that you have this dream about your life, or you feel like God has given you this vision for your life. And so that's the direction you're going to go. And you just go, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And sometimes you get envy. And envy is when people actually act on their jealousy. So jealousy is knowing that you don't like what this person has. You're jealous because they have a gift that you don't have, or they have a call that you don't have, or something like that. But envy takes that jealousy another step, actually a lot more steps, because the envy is what takes you to act out things that cause that person, or to prohibit that person from being able to carry out the dream or vision for their life. And that's what Joseph's brothers did. They said, you know what? We're just going to kill him because we're sick of him. We're tired of our father's favoritism and partiality toward him, and we're tired of him getting all these special gifts and we get nothing. All we get to do is watch the herds. We don't get anything special. We're just here. And so they were very jealous of him, and so then they decided to act on their jealousy. So they were so envious that they acted on it. So they tried to kill, or they thought about killing him, and instead sold him into slavery. So that's what they did. And people, we have to be very careful about the people that we share our dreams with, because we want them to have the right response, right? We want them to pray with us and join us in the dream. Okay, so we want we want to decide what to do with a God-given dream, and that is to act on it and move forward, or to do nothing and go nowhere. So it's up to us. When God gives us a dream, we can act on it and move forward and proceed in it, or we can do nothing and go absolutely nowhere. And what's going to happen is that when you start acting on it, you're going to go, oh, but God, what if I miss you? What if I miss you? What if I miss you? But the reality is, if God has called you to something, He is going to begin to give you clarity. As you take those steps, He's going to give you the clarity to carry them out. That's what happened with Joseph, because Joseph found himself in Egypt, in the house of the governor, and then he ended up being over everyone in the house of the governor because he was so diligent to be a God-fearing person. He still carried out the truth of what he knew was right. He was a righteous person living for God. And he said, I don't care if I'm in Egypt, I still serve the God of my fathers. And I am not going to serve the sun, and I'm not going to serve, the sun as in the star, the sun. I'm not going, Ra, and I'm not going to serve all of these other gods of Egypt. I'm going to serve the God of my fathers, no matter what anyone else does. And no matter how much trouble he got in, he ended up in prison because of a false accusation. But even in the prison, there were people who knew he had a gift of interpreting dreams. And so the bread maker and the cupbearer asked him to interpret their dreams. And so he did, and he was correct. And one was restored and one was not. And so when Joseph did all of these things, he was following after God. So he kept on doing what God had called him to do. So he kept on acting on the right thing, and he kept moving forward. And eventually, Joseph was the one who saved Egypt as well as the people of his own land from the famine, because God gave him the ability to do that. So he continued to act and move forward, even though there were a lot of big, major setbacks. How many of us can say, listen, I've got this big dream, but boy, I've had some setbacks. But it's because God is keeping you in that training ground, and He's going to continue growing you and helping you as you move forward to carry out this thing that He has called you to do. So we've got to decide what to do with this God-given dream. Are we going to act on it and move forward, or are we going to do nothing and go nowhere? Inaction is an action in itself. Not doing anything causes God to say, you know what, if you're not going to do it, I'm calling someone else to do this. And they'll do it a different way, but you're not going to get anything for what I've called you to do. So Joseph had a God-given dream. He shared his dream. It brought questions and ridicule and jealousy and envy. but he still carried out what God had called him to do. And we can do the same thing. We've got to dream the dream that God has given us, or carry out the vision that God has given us. We've got to think outside of ourselves and say, God, this is bigger than I am, so it's going to require your super on my natural in order to carry it out. I'm going to pray hard about it. I'm going to follow closely the things that God shows me. I'm going to go step by step and do what he shows me to do. And then I'm going to carry it out with some crazy courage, because it's going to look crazy to some other people that go, I can't believe you're doing that. But you know what? If God has called you to do it, he will help you carry it out. Read the story of Joseph for yourself. It's in the Old Testament. It's in the book of Genesis, which is the first book of the Bible. And this dream that we read about today is in chapter 37, so Genesis 37. But God will help you carry out the things that he has called you to do. And, you know, the Bible also tells us that he who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. So he's talking about, in that particular scripture, he's talking about your salvation. And he's talking about God began this work in you, and he's going to complete it until you reach that end where you are saved from destruction for eternity. But it also is talking about he who began this good work in you is going to do things in your life. And as you follow him, he is going to be faithful to help you get through these things, to complete these steps, to get you to that place that God has given you in your dream or in your vision for your life. God will take you and carry you through it all. So, that said, dream big, think out there, pray hard, follow closely what God is showing you to do, and step out with crazy courage, because God will see you through it all. And he is faithful to complete what he has begun in you. So, great lesson for us. I hope that this is encouraging to you and helps you say, you know what, I'm going to say yes to this thing that God is calling me to do, because he has called me to do it. So let me end today's lesson by inviting you to join us on Sunday. We meet at 11 o'clock for our worship service. We are currently meeting in our fellowship hall while we await our new air conditioning unit. And so we are working toward that. And so hopefully it won't take too long, but there are lots of people who are in the queue in front of us, because there are lots of people who need air conditioners right now. We have experienced a lot of 100-degree plus days this summer, and so having those units replaced is very necessary. And so we're very thankful that we have raised the money to do that. And so we praise the Lord for that, for helping us through that, and for those who have stepped up and said, listen, we want to be part of that. We want to help you get this done. So we praise the Lord for that. And so it won't be too long before those are replaced and we can be back in our sanctuary again. But until then, we are only meeting at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings for our worship service. So we hope that you will join us. If you are in the Wellington, Texas area, that you'll join us in person. We meet at 1000 Amarillo Street in Wellington. And again, that's in the fellowship hall at 11 o'clock. We do live stream our service here on this Facebook page, on our YouTube channel at Leah Fort 6327. So we hope that you will join us online if you are not in Wellington. But if you are in Wellington, join us in person. We'd love to meet you face to face and get to know you, and hopefully you'll just be part of what we're doing there at the Church of the Nazarene in Wellington. So we hope that you will join us for our worship service on Sunday, either in person or online. So until I see you on Sunday, have a wonderfully winning day, a fabulously winning week. Happy first day of school to all the students that are going back to school today, and have a wonderfully winning day, a fabulously winning week. And I will see you on Sunday. Have a great week.